drifting, babe. I'm drifting, babe. I'm drifting so far away your way. I'm drifting, babe.
I know it's late for you East Coasters.
I'm drifting, babe.
So we're gonna get started after one more song, so I can get my arena people in the building. Thank you, Amelia Tito.
It's a small thing for that day or a big thing for that life. It's driven by something, but it's a intrinsic need to accomplish X or do Y or Z because we think it will fulfill something that's missing. And so, as we go through the journey of accomplishing these things, and sometimes we accomplish it, and then we realize, okay, that really, I'm still empty, that wasn't it. So we keep going through life, but at the end of the day, as you do accomplish those things, you accomplish more to build yourself. So therefore, the process of success in whatever, whether it's physical, whether it's a personal goal, that is your healing process. That's your chosen healing process. And the only thing you must question is, are the goals that you picked for said success your goals, or the ones programmed into you? Yeah? And so the real reflection comes also then to find out those type of answers. We look into the present, where you can actually stop hearing all these voices, these fears, these things you're hanging on to. All sickness is when you bring the past or the future into the present moment. That's where sickness is. All healing, all things that are all peace, all safety is always in the now. Nothing's killing you. You're breathing. This is the safest place you can ever be, in the present. Even if there's a knife to your head, before that knife hits, that present moment, you're still alive.
Yo, that was Ride Your Wave by yours truly. Just about set up. I'm putting some resources in the jumbo. Thank you for everybody that pulled up. We're gonna go ahead and get started. I know it's late for some of you all, and I have an honored guest. We have Dr. Ashley Elliott in the building. I see everybody that pulled up. I'm just getting my arena room set up. They said the microphone is in use. It is not. Thank you all. This is episode 4. Can't believe it already. Episode 4 of Dear Sapphy. This is where we have adult conversations, just talking about things in life that we don't really get to talk about in our day-to-day, from the very serious and the deep to eventually some of the fun stuff. I did a poll about whether you all wanted to talk about the topic of what is good sex versus what is narcissism. In this poll, like astronomically, this was the decision. So we'll get to the fun, spicy stuff later. But first, I wanted to introduce, I actually just wanted to thank everybody for coming here today. And I do want to introduce my special guest, Dr. Ashley Elliott. She wears many hats. I mean, from clinical psychologist, mental health advocate, mother, poet, speaker, like all around just a really dope and fun and stimulating individual. So I wanted to thank you for being here. And I would love to have you talk a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself. And yeah, just check in with you. How are you feeling, Queen?
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay?
You sound crispy to me. Throw up some emojis if you walk in here, Dr. Ashley.
Yeah. Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Rex. Thank you. So, yes, thank you for the beautiful introduction. I do a lot of shit. I'm Dr. Ashley Elliott, affectionately known as Dr. Vivid, because I created a mental health consulting company called Vivid Innovations Consulting, which is now the Vivid Wellness Collective, because I'm all about curating more connections with folk. Dr. Psychology, been out here with this little degree for a while, but I also am a Doctor Psychology, been out here with this little degree for a while, but I also am a mental health advocate. I'm there advocating for you and your mental health. I'm a mom of 2 little black girls that I adore, but they're expensive, so yeah, love is appreciated. Podcast host, I'm a writer. What else do I do? Oh yeah, I do. I love spoken word. I'm an artist. I'm a creative. Because that's one of my favorite coping mechanisms. Writing and art were the first things that saved my life as a child. So I love to, be in that space. I'm also the chief inclusivity officer for a new queer social club and non-alcoholic bar and cafe here in Washington, D.C. called Spark Social. Wanted to make sure that we are having more creative and safe spaces. So not only will we be partying, having drag shows, serving you really cool mocktails and doing dance parties, we're also going to be doing wellness days where I'm helping people in the community get hooked up with whatever insurance they need or pro bono services for wellness. And also getting them hooked up with good therapists from the community. And I'm just so honored to be here. I'm on the East Coast. I'm in DC. So I've been at work. I've been working since 11, and I literally got off at 8:50 p.m. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be here for the. So, shout out to everybody.
Thank you for being here, and that's why I want to be respectful of your time. Honestly, I'm honored. You have, for your accolades and the stuff that you do, you are so humble. And so generous, and it's just an honor to be here. And I don't know that you mentioned, I know you said you're a writer, but you're actually a published author. Is that right? Will you drop, what's the name of your book, and can they get it on Amazon? How can they tap in with you just in general?
Yeah, so my first book on Amazon is called In My Safe Space. That was in 2017, which is a book of collective writings and poetry from the time I was 19 to the time I turned 30 to help introduce people to mental health conversations. The second book is called My Feelings Matter, which I did that in 2021, a collaboration with my children. It's a book where we cover emotional vocabulary to help parents and caregivers and teachers help to foster a good emotional vocabulary in children, and also to press adults not to project their own feelings and their own definitions on children. So that, and my latest book that I published is called, oh my goodness, Grabbing a Moment for Me, and it's a book of brief journal prompts and therapeutic tools. Literally, it is called The Brief Journal Prompts and Therapeutic Tools for the One Who Never Has Time. I'm a Sagittarius, sun and moon, so I'm in the realm of don't tell me something, I'm going to show you. I had a lot of friends and family members and clients tell me, I just don't have time for self-care, I don't have time for this. So I created a book which gives you 30 different affirmations and 30 different prompts that take less than a minute to read and no more than 15 minutes to complete, with the shortest taking a minute, to prove that you can make time for yourself. I've also contributed to a series called The Zeitgeist of Pop Culture. It's the first book that I was published, the first contribution that I did as an author. I wrote a chapter on authoritarian parenting based on the Netflix series The Witcher. And then the latest one, I did a chapter on imperfect parenting for the Zeitgeist of Pop Culture for the series Bluey. Wow. So I be forgetting that I do so much. Thanks, Sapphy.
Yes, like honestly, I didn't even know all of that about you, and I was already thoroughly impressed. You are, that's inspiring, to be honest with you. And I love all people doing things, but especially queens, and especially Black and brown queens. It definitely inspires me. It speaks to me. So thank you again for being here. So without further ado, I do want to jump into the topic, but just to get the basic housekeeping things out of the way. I'm on different platforms. I'm on Arena, so thank you for being there. And some of you all are multiple places at the same time. I love you a lot. I'm also on TikTok Live, and of course we're here. The best way to connect with me, if you have input, because I cannot watch all the things, I would be watching the comments as much as possible here on Twitter. But there is a textable line if you want to remain anonymous. You can text that line. You can email Dear Sapphy. Text is probably the best thing. You can just put your initials or a nickname. I will be engaging in the comments. I did also put some resources because I did a deep dive. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this topic is because it's still so soon and so fresh, but I've had my first personal encounter with a narcissist, and it made me really humble myself, because I've heard this term, and I will be really frank with you all. I was very judgmental. I always said, when I heard people talk about that or talk about how traumatic it can be, I always thought, how could you be so silly, or it couldn't be that serious. And then until you experience it, it really will humble you, because you realize that what we think narcissism is a lot deeper. So the goal for this conversation, and not that I have all the answers, I always like to preface it with that, I'm just really trying to figure out this life thing, and this is one of those things I've encountered. So I'm leaning on everyone else's experience and experts and things like that. That's why we have Dr. Ashley Elliott here. And just people in general. If you don't have to be certified to have your experiences inform, what you know about these things. So I'm here to learn, but I have done a deep dive. And so my goal today is to provide a safe space. I didn't record it here because a lot of us frequent this space, and you might want to share something here that you don't necessarily want all your Twitter friends to know about. So do keep in mind, that's why I mentioned that if you do speak, you don't have to mention your name, because I am going to repurpose this material for the Dear Sapphy YouTube. So just keep that in mind. But really, it's just a safe space, no judgment. And my goal is to provide clarity on narcissism, recognize its manifestation, and basically try to offer guidance on healing from its effects. So if you do have a comment, if you are here on X, you can definitely hop on the stage if you want to. But really, we're going to be sharing some insights. I did get like 2 inputs and questions from people, but first I want to start with what even is narcissism. I feel like it's been such a buzzword, or at least I've been hearing more about it in the last few years. I don't know if you've heard about it more often than before in your field, Dr. Ashley, but I've honestly, in the last 5-6 years, maybe slightly before COVID, I feel like is when I first actually heard the term being used frequently. And I honestly thought it was just somebody that was like arrogant and control, like self-centered and controlling. That was my general idea of narcissism. And that's why I think I oversimplified it or judged people that said that they were victims of it. And so I do want to start by defining it based on some of the research I've done. And then I want to hear from you, Dr. Ashley, and anybody else that wants to come up. But from the research I've done, narcissism involves patterns of behaviors where an individual feels an exaggerated sense of importance, often fantasizing about power and needing constant admiration. Narcissistic personality disorder can be defined as, or characterized by, persistent patterns of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. And the common misconception is that the term narcissist is basically often overused, which dilutes the serious implications. Not all self-centered behaviors equate to narcissistic personality disorder. So what things would you like to add to like defining or trying to actually get a grasp on how we define narcissism?
Yes, definitely. I think that when we talk about narcissism, the first misconception that I want to clear up, that narcissism itself is clinical and narcissism itself is bad. So at the core, narcissism is an excessive interest and admiration of oneself. And that can be about your qualities, or it can be about physical appearance. And that's at the core, right? So all of us are born with a healthy dose of narcissism. Let's say that you're really good at something, and you know you're really good at something. You may brag a little, or you may be like, you know what, I'm that person. I may, feel like this is something that I can talk about myself about. So there's healthy elements of narcissism, and there are unhealthy elements of narcissism. So like the narcissism, especially when we talk about, I grew up as an American, a Black American, there's a lot of individualism and narcissism, where you see yourself and you're not really thinking about how others perceive you, because you're the shit. You're like, this is what this means to me. These are what these accomplishments mean to me. And to be honest, in a competitive, individualistic society, you do need a healthy dose of narcissism to be like, you know what? I'm capable of doing this. I'm capable of, going to this competition and winning. I'm capable of going into this job and getting it. Things like that. But then we go into personality disorder and unhealthy narcissism. The biggest thing is people will see, like you said, somebody being arrogant and be like, oh my God, you're a narcissist. No, because when we talk about the personality disorder, there's literal a criteria that we have to go on before I can even consider you having a personality disorder. And the key function, I'm telling you guys clinically, is a personality disorder. It's something that affects someone else's functioning but it also has like a global community impact. Like, the key thing about personality disorders is that it's not really harming the person as much as it's harming other people around the person. It's bothering those people. It's a detriment to their health. And that's the personality disorder piece. Means there are other parts of this person's personality that play into it so that it becomes aggressive or bothersome to the societal status quo. So that's the biggest thing. So literally the diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder is you have a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in like your behavior or the fantasies you have about yourself, a pervasive need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. And you see this beginning like in early adulthood, and it's usually indicated by 5 or more of the following. 1, you have a grandiose sense of self-importance. So you're not just like, oh, I'm the shit. You're exaggerating your achievements and your talents. And you expect to be recognized as the top of the top tier, that person, by everyone. Then the second one is that you're preoccupied with fantasies related to unlimited success or unlimited power, unlimited brilliance, unlimited beauty, or ideal love. Like, for instance, this could be like, oh my gosh, the person is obsessed with being famous, or, you know, whether it be YouTube, whether it be in the media, the person is obsessed with having a certain amount of money. The person is obsessed with having a certain level of objects around them, or people, or love interests, not because they're interested in these things, but because they equate these things to admiration. You believe that you are special, and you're so special and unique that you can only be associated with other special people, other high status people. Like, it's this idea that you are so
checking
great,
off a box for a certain person.
Everything with admiration. And when I say requires, maybe if you're not talking about them and how much you love them and how great they are, it is a crime to their existence. Then you must, like, if you're a partner to this person, you're gonna have to tell me how much you love me and show me how much you love me all the time, or it's not real to me, and I'm gonna make you feel guilty about it. The sense of entitlement is crazy because it's unreasonable. So this person wants this really favorable treatment, or I want you to automatically do what the fuck I say. It's automatic compliance.
Yes.
I said,
oh my gosh,
I'm a special person, so you should be really lending to me. And this is then we get to the deeper parts of what people aren't paying attention to when we talk about narcissistic personality disorder. Because everybody can be grandiose, people can be delusional about their things, but we get into the idea that this person is interpersonally exploitative.
Yes.
Meaning, this person takes advantage of others.
My goodness.
To make sure that they get what they need. And they don't care who knows it, or they do it in a way that it's like
covert, right? Like,
yes,
sneaky.
It's covert. Yeah, it's sneaky. It's very manipulative.
Yes.
And
100% connected to.
And if they're called out on it, it will be, well, they chose this. You know, I didn't ask them to do this. They wanted to, you know. Then the other deeper part is the complete lack of empathy. You can't recognize or identify with other people's feelings or the needs of others. So they understand how it feels for somebody to wrong them. They understand that perception of being wrong. However, they can't see that other people can be wrong.
Oh my God.
Like, that doesn't matter. It's kind of like everybody else is just whining where my issues are real. Like,
or you're a victim. Is that a thing too where they victim blaming? Is that a real thing?
Yeah, victim blaming and gaslighting are like supreme with narcissistic personality disorder. It's kind of like fuel, because at the core of it, they're very insecure. So they need to make other people feel insecure in order to not be the elephant in the room. Because they're mostly envious of other people. But the idea they flip is everybody else is jealous of me, is envious of me. Everybody wants to be me. Everybody wants to have. Everybody wants to be with me. And it's just then, that arrogance or like really haughty or arrogant behavior and attitudes. But the piece that I think that most people are missing is when we're talking about narcissists in the terms of narcissistic personality disorder, is the lack of empathy.
Yes.
And the exploitive nature of it. Those things have to be there.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Every time you were saying so many things, I'm like, yep, check. And I thank you for clarifying that, just because there is, I guess, the same thing with ego, right? Ego gets a bad rap, but in this world, you do need ego to fuel, right? To fuel your, for survival even. And so what I'm referring to as far as the negative and the more extreme end of the spectrum is NPD. So if I say NPD, I'm talking about narcissistic personality disorder. And it sounds like there are several criteria. And I think the way that, at least I've experienced it, and I have a friend, and Chanel, she talks about it openly. She's done a whole podcast. So I'm not going to tell her business or tell her story, but she has done it. It's very good. You should tap in with her. I know it's somewhere on her Twitter page, but even the ways that I've heard her explain it were very similar to my experience. So I was going to go through the narcissistic abuse cycle, which is a repetitive pattern of like you said, emotional manipulation that narcissists often use to control and mostly importantly, I think, destabilize their victims or the people that they decide to target. And so what I found is that it happens in like 3 primary phases. So first is the ideation phase, which is like the equivalent of love bombing. If anybody's ever been love bombed, you met somebody and like they are like consumed and obsessed and they do anything. But this is where the narcissist intensely showers their target with admiration, attention, affection, and makes them feel like the most special and valued person in the world. And some common signs of that are excessive praise and flattery. You're my soulmate. No one has ever understood me like you do. So if any of that sounds familiar, then there's the quick escalation of intimacy. I've never felt this way before, even if they've only known you for a short period of time. There's constant communication and validation. So texting and calling nonstop, planning all these elaborate romantic gestures, and then mirroring. And that's basically adopting the victim's like interests or beliefs and values to appear as a perfect match. And so, why it feels so powerful, the target is made to feel incredibly wanted, loved, and admired. Often you get like this emotional high, and this is what creates a deep attachment and dependency and making it harder to recognize that manipulation later. So what are your thoughts on this this first so-called phase of that abuse cycle?
Yeah, it's really, when we talk about it and we talk about love bombing, some people, and for those who, like you say, are not too familiar with it, it's the idea of excessive gestures of admiration, affection, and care. And we're doing that. Let me start by saying this. There are certain, I know we'll get to this later probably, but there are certain traits that narcissistic individuals look for in targets and in relationships. So, and it's like, it's a thing where it just happens that you meet this person, they really do think it's like, you click, whether it be a friend, platonically or romantically, or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, this person is, doing this love bombing to get more information about you, as well as build confidence in whatever the relationship or dynamic that you have. Because we live in a world where we honestly don't get appreciated the way we deserve to be appreciated.
Right.
And if you're love starved, or if you're someone that has come from a background where there has been abuse, or there has been a lack of affection, you're a prime target, because this person is going to make you feel like you're the greatest thing in the world. You're the only person in the world, or like we're made for each other. Like, oh my gosh, look at how well that we connect. And because the thing about it is, humans will doubt a task and they will doubt a person, but it's harder to doubt a connection.
Oof,
and if I establish this loving connection with you and come on so strong, it lowers your doubt threshold. So you have that piece. And then you're getting in, as you come into it, you're like, oh, okay. When we talk about assuming interest, make no mistake, just because you're a clinician, you're not immune. So I have one of my child's fathers is a narcissist, clinically. They know this. We have conversations about it. But there are ways that I have to deal with him in order to preserve the relationship with my child and for my child. And one of the things that he says, and one of the things that I've seen in clients, is the idea of creating this space so that it feels so safe. Creating these interests, like let's say you're really into cooking. It's them reading books about cooking and reading books about recipes and watching cooking shows so they can have information to talk to you about. And
that's see extreme. So you're saying that they will go do some mad research just to like assimilate to their target's interest.
Yes. So if it's that, they'll do those things. And you think, oh my gosh, in a normal circumstance, this person really wants to know what I'm fucking with, what I really like. But really it is, I need as much data as possible.
That's sick.
To be able to have this communication with this person so that they feel they're closer to me than they actually are. Everything is really data driven with them. It's collecting things. But then they start to critique things about that interest that you have, or critique things about how you treat them. Or if they try to participate in the interest with you, it's more of like, well, I do this and I do this and it feels competitive. First it may feel cute, and then it feels aggressive. Because they're trying to find a way to make sure the playing field is even. And then when you question it in the part of the relationship after we get there, it's about making you question yourself.
Oh my gosh, that part.
Why would you think I'm cheating on you when I spent all this time with you? I did this. I'm the only person that has been there for you since your mom passed away. I'm the only person I'm the first person that took you on a trip. I'm this. I let you borrow the money and I never asked for it back. Like, if I didn't care about you, I wouldn't do all of these things. So now you start the biggest piece is disarming you by making you question what your reality is how that reality plays into the relationship. So once they pull that rug from under you, you start questioning your behavior. So as a result, you start pouring into them more instead of pulling back from them more to prove that, yeah, I'm locked in. And then that's when they hit the gotcha. And then once they know you're locked in, then you get the more criticism and the feedback part of it, where it's like, you ain't call me. Like, I remember the first time I told my ex that I was like, yeah, you need to work on that. There's some things I don't know about you. And I started like thinking about it. When we first, I literally, the day after we had made things official, I was on Instagram and, and I posted a story and I started scrolling and liking. And he texted me and said, you've been up on Instagram posting, but you haven't even told me good morning. And I looked and I was like, first of all, that's crazy. And my response was, oh, I wasn't, talking to people yet.
And it was like, he was taken aback by the fact that I didn't apologize. Because, you know, I just, on the clinician, I was like, that's a weird response. And then it becomes blaming you for anything that is an inconvenience to them. You know, or blaming you or putting you in a position that makes you the responsible party for decisions or anything that comes with it. And it's really unrealistic. It's crazy. And you get to the point where that happens so often, and let's say you respond with these big emotions because they're valid,
Right.
and then they're telling you, what are you crying for? I'm the person that is inconvenienced. My time is the time being wasted. And it becomes more of them berating
The blame thrower. I like that, Tony.
but just enough it's enough to hurt, but also enough to make you question how we get here.
Yes.
And at that point, you find yourself in this, like, the loop of it all. And then they give you a little bit of love bomb, and the cycle just continues and continues until you finally decide that it's time to disengage.
Oh my goodness. Like, whew, this stuff is soft. Like, oh man, this is probably too soon for me to be having this conversation publicly. But just because I'm going through the emotions, because I would say the one thing that stood out the most in that, and I think is what really makes it so traumatic, and again, why I'm like, dang, all the people I judge, you don't realize it's, I don't know how to say this any other way, so excuse my language, but it's the mind fuckery for me. Like, it's the fact that because your guards are so down, and you, I think either because you trust this person, or you love them, or you're in love with them, or you at that point you think so highly of them, and it could be because, like in my case, you fell in love with their avatar. It's not really truly them. Or in the second phase of it, I kind of knew that I'm like, oh, this is not who you, this is who you really are. But I had this hope that they just need love and support. They just, you know, I made all these excuses for why they were the way they are. And I thought, honestly, arrogantly, that just my love and my support would be enough to have that change. But what happens is, like, that mind game thing where you're made to feel like you did something wrong, that is a doozy. That will put you through a loop. So yeah, so the love, like and I do want to get to that next as far as, okay, well, why did I attract this person in the first place? Because that's an honest, being, if you want to call yourself a victim, or somebody that, if you don't like that word, someone that experienced something like that, you do always have to do a self-evaluation and figure out, well, how did I get here in the first place? What made me attract that person and accept that? So I do want to get to that, and then how to break the cycle. But in that first phase of that abuse cycle, there was the love bombing, or the ideation phase. That second phase, you kind of touched on, just to define it a little bit more, was the devaluation phase. This is the emotional roller coaster that Dr. Ashley just spoke on. And so once a narcissist feels secure in their control over the victim, their behavior, that's when it begins to shift. The admiration and the affection will fade, and it's usually replaced, like she said, by criticism, manipulation, and even gaslighting. Oh, I hate gaslighting. So some common tactics of devaluation, those are going to be the subtle insults or put downs disguised as jokes, like, wow, you're really sensitive, aren't you? Or the hot and cold behavior. One day they adore you, the next day they're ignoring you. The comparison to others. My ex never did that. Maybe you should be more like them. And then, oh my gosh, the gaslighting. That this never happened. You're imagining things. That part, that will make me. I've never been gaslit in my life until then. But that's the thing. I'm like the whatever that show is, that Pixar show with the emotions, where he blows his top. That makes me go from 0 to 60. And I never even knew I had that capacity to be that mad and that erratic until like, the extreme gaslighting is crazy. And then the last point is the blame shifting. And actually, on TikTok, somebody said, start the blame thrower. I've never heard of that. But blame shifting, that's making the victim feel like they're responsible for that emotional instability, because you can be triggered. Like, for me, I'm not a very jealous person. I'm not a very, I'm very analytical. Like, I actually have, before this situation, was more likely to hold on to anger or anything like that. So I had time to analyze it, just in case I was tripping, and I wanted time to unpack it before I brought it to someone. Whereas in this situation, when you're gaslit and you like, am I tripping? Or like, you're just made to feel so angry that you will be that. I became that person that would like throw a tantrum or be like really upset and say like some crazy things just to, prove that I'm not crazy. And so I find that these little manipulative tactics would really start to mess with your emotion and make you start to question yourself and make you start to think, maybe it is me, because there's no way, or maybe I did imagine it. So that phase of it, that devaluation and that manipulation phase, is what I found to be the most traumatic and hurtful part of the whole thing. Because it's one thing to be with someone that changes. I think we've all met people that brought their representative, right, and their best version, and it started to decline them where they got comfortable. But to be a completely different person and do a 180 is like really baffling and crazy to me.
It's also hard to question. Like, it makes you question humanity to some degree.
Right.
Because you're like, how can a person move like this?
Speaker.
And it's because this person is so
connected to iPhone.
deeply vulnerable and so fragile in terms of ego and self-esteem and confidence in real life, not the facade that they wear. That their way of dealing with their pain is only to make someone else feel it. And it's very much misery loves company. But
Connected to
and the thing about it is, with certain mental health diagnoses, we will have some qualifiers like good insight or poor insight, which means I'm aware of what's happening. Most folk with narcissistic personality disorder understand what they're doing. See, the thing is, they understand your perspective from a cognitive level. Like, they can intellectualize the fact that if you do this to a person, they will feel this. But they can't directly feel those emotions that the other person is feeling. Like, so when them saying, I've had clients who've had narcissistic partners to be like, say something like, I don't know why every time you wear yellow, you just draw so much attention to yourself. And you're like, what do you mean? I like the attention. Well, maybe I would too, but you've been like out of shape for a while, so I would just think you would choose a more, visually appeasing color.
That's cold.
And you're like, why the fuck would you say something like that? Did you just say this person was unattractive? Yes, they did. And it wasn't because they don't understand the fact that, like, calling someone unattractive isn't the nice thing to do. They just can't connect with the fact that in real time, this person's feelings that are created by this comment matter. Like, empathy a lack of empathy isn't not being able to emote. They can cry, they can be sad, they can be angry, they can be jealous, they can be all of these things. A lack of empathy is not being able to understand emotional weight from somebody else's perspective. Like, I can never be in your shoes. I can't be in your shoes if I'm grandiose. You can't, so I can't understand from a peasant level. This is the thought. This is the narcissist thinking. From a common level, from someone that is beneath me intellectually, emotionally. I can't connect with you there. Yeah, I can cry. I know what it feels like to be sad. But you should be able to deal with this. Like, get it the fuck together. And it's really, like you said, it's a mind fuck. Because the reality of it is this is a person that probably in their childhood was made fun of, was talked about terribly by caregivers, by people around them, was made to feel so small, and nobody ever really checked in on them to make sure that they were okay. And they've had to deal with criticism and feeling defeated and empty and depressed for so long without help, that instead of looking inward and trying to heal, they focused on making the world feel as bad as they feel on a regular basis. They're just not going to verbalize that to you.
So that's confusing to me and hard to process in a way because, well, for me, I actually think that that's what kept me anchored where I was, because I do have a very high level of empathy. I've even been told that I'm empathic. So that kept me, again, that empathy and being like, I actually understand this person experienced trauma. I actually understand this person had a spirit of rejection over them, you know, and a spirit of abandonment and things like that. And so that made me think, okay, like I didn't know what it could possibly be, but I knew something was off, and I just knew something was off, and that they were acting out of this deficit. And so in one breath, I hear you saying that they're aware of what they're doing and that aware of kind of their manipulation. But on the other hand, it's like it's also just kind of coming out of as a result of like trauma or neglect or these, or, you know, being picked on or abused. So it's just like, I guess there could be, those things can exist in the same realm in a way, but it just, to me, it's like you're either aware or you're just naturally acting out of survival. That's what it is. I saw this person acting out of survival. This is the way that they've survived since they were young, and they don't know any other way, and it's just like they can't help themselves. But it sounds like they are generally aware of what they're doing. They just don't care.
Yeah, because that's empathy. Why do I care? No one cared about me. You know, so me, you know, reciprocating that care ain't gonna get me nowhere. Right. I know what can get me somewhere. Me moving the chess pieces on the board the way I need to get what I want, since life did that to me. And it's really a result of somebody not being nurtured in a way that they probably deserve in a younger part of their life. And something I say with my clients all the time is that I can understand it, but I don't condone it. So I can understand where you're coming from, but not condone the behavior and not support it, because you were traumatized, you were hurt, you had to live in survival mode. However, because you lived through that does not mean that you are now here to get revenge and to get your comeuppance because you lived through it. Right. You know, but then they see everyone else as victims without acknowledging that they were victim zero. And that's the part that pulled a lot of people in. Like, you want to make people feel better. You want to be there for them. You want to give support. You want to be like, you know what? God damn it. It sucks that you went through this. And they know that too. That's why they tell you certain things to make you feel sorry for them. And to think that, oh, this is just a response to this stressor and not a pattern of abuse and a pattern of like cognitive rigidity and manipulation to serve a purpose. And it's really difficult. That's why like personality disorders are like the most difficult disorders to treat. And we talk about it when clinical attention is necessary, because of course it's a mental health diagnosis. Narcissists don't come into the world as shaken. Right. And the world is shaken because my girlfriend tells me that they're going to leave me because they don't like my behavior. It has to be like a crisis. Like, I lost my job, or I lost a promotion. I'm about to get divorced. I'm bankrupt. There's like a serious like setback or really intolerable disappointments that would expose them to be more vulnerable. And that's when you start to see
is what you're saying,
those things trying to kind of fall down, and they're like, oh shit, I need help.
Yeah.
But if you're dealing with them at a community level or interpersonal level, you're like, well, you might be like, oh yeah, they're finally admitting something. But if they don't get the proper professional help that they need, it's going to be a wash. And also what people don't understand is a lot of narcissists don't willingly come to therapy. And if you willingly come to therapy because you really want to change, it's because you had some of these crises occur. But the most time that you see narcissists come to therapy is to learn how to emote, to be manipulative.
Oh my gosh.
So,
oh no. Wow.
Yeah. So it's really a hard process. So if you're doing the work, I have seen people be like, no, I actively know this is a thing and it's tearing me apart, and it took me to lose my family and everything I own to see how bad this was. But I also know people who literally are just like, I'm going to go here and soak all this shit up so I can learn all the buzzwords, all the things to say, all the ways to fake empathy. And it's something that happens commonly with personality disorders, especially narcissistic personality disorder.
That's so yeah, I hear you saying that they usually have to hit rock bottom, which I know a lot of disorders are like that, even alcoholics and drug addicts. And that's why I think I have more empathy, because not only do I have that in my family, but I worked in like shelters and things like that, and so I'm a little bit more sensitive to realizing that you don't usually judge a person for their disorder, because that's a symptom of a problem, not the root of the problem. So I think that's why I have more sensitivity. And I've noticed with alcoholics and drug addicts, you can do interventions, you can like try to help them out, but until they hit rock bottom, until they decide to change, like they're generally not going to seek the help out, or it's not going to usually be sustainable. But that's so wild to me that if they do take it upon themselves, they're literally learning how to like sharpen their artillery and get more tools to be manipulative. That's sick. It's really
really wild. Like my child's father, I remember for work he was ordered to go to therapy, and I remember, when you're dating a clinician, you pick up things. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were broken up during this time, and him being like, oh, I'm with this therapist, and I told him X, Y, and Z, and he looked at me and was just like, what the fuck? And he just burst out laughing, and I was like, you up there fucking with this man just to see what information he's gonna give. I was like, you have the opportunity to work on other shit. You know you don't have to work on this related to this, right? And he was like, I could, but I don't really want to be here anyway, so I'm just going to use it for what it's worth. And as a result, he got months worth of therapy about bullshit.
Oh my God.
And picked up strategies that he could use, to the point where I started realizing he was using like therapy speak, as we call it.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, what the fuck? And I remember one of his exes being like, texting me like, I don't know what the fuck you taught him. I said, oh, girl, that ain't me. That wasn't me at all. Insane. He's learned the key. There was a manipulating factor there. And some therapists get sucked into it if you've never worked with personality disorders before. But if you have, in the clinical setting, you can see it. So that's to say, if a therapist who hasn't been exposed to that type of behavior and that type of manipulation before may struggle, we need to be honest with ourselves about how it can help. You could be struggling with that as a lay person, just encountering this person that has such an extreme pattern of behavior. It's really jarring to you emotionally, cognitively, mentally. And you start to, the questioning of it is also like, this one person can't possibly be capable of being this diabolical or this heartless or this ridiculous, when in fact all of us are. One of my colleagues said that all of us are a couple experiences away from being a narcissistic personality disorder diagnosed person. And I said, actually, that's true. Like, if it depends on how you let the world mold you.
Yeah, because I mean, I would like to think that I have enough empathy, and I've been through enough that I wouldn't, but like, I ain't gonna hold you like this. I was almost ready to go into villain mode. This was about to see. It made me, like I could see it. So I could see that, because you did again explain at the very beginning, for those that just joined us, that narcissism itself is not necessarily bad, just like ego isn't bad. It's just like, and there's a spectrum. Now, narcissistic personality disorder is what we're mainly talking about, because that's when it becomes unhealthy, where it goes from helping you navigate this world to being harmful to other people. And so I can kind of see that. I would like to think that, one thing I think why I like to say I'm not is because I'm a follower of Yeshua, and not just by title. I try to like follow his tenets and live like him and love on people like him. So I would think that just in my nature too, I tend to serve and give to points where it's kind of even I'm in deficit. So, but you never know. Like, I've been through some stuff, but who knows what everybody has probably a breaking point where if I would continue to go in this cycle with people, or was, you know, out on the street or abandoned, who knows if that would flip a switch. But I don't know. I'm just like stunned, because that little part of me that thought that there might be hope for a person is, the more that we have this conversation as far as them changing, that it's starting to fade a little bit. And it's also starting to make me feel less foolish about the things that I overlooked, when you tell me that even a trained clinician may overlook some of these things. And so, and I do want to get to that, because one of the questions that we got from the audiences were along those lines of, do you think people can change? But as far as just to get on track to be you know, aware of your time, and those of you on the East Coast, we just got done talking about the first two of what's generally like this narcissistic abuse cycle. The first one is that ideation phase, which is the love bombing. The second one is that devaluation phase, which is that emotional roller coaster. And the reason like it's so confusing is because victims tend to cling to the quote unquote good moments from the ideation phase, hoping that if they just try harder, things will go back to how they were. And it creates this cognitive dissonance where the victim questions their own reality and like continues to stay in this toxic dynamic. And the third sort of phase would be the discard phase. That is that sudden detachment and emotional devastation. And once the narcissistic like loses interest, basically they either get bored, they find a new target, they will like cold-blooded abandon the victim, and it'll be cold, it'll be without remorse. And so some common signs of discarding: sudden ghosting or cutting off communication, like I'm done, you're too much. Acting indifferent to the victim's pain, like you're overreacting, move on, stop acting like a victim, those sort of things. And then triangulation, that's immediately moving on to a new partner or a new plaything or whatever. And sometimes they may even flaunt that to the victim, or make it clear that they're replaceable. And then the last part of that discard phase is blaming them for the failure of the relationship. If you weren't so needy, this wouldn't have happened. And so the reason why this hurts so much is because that contrast between the love, that first phase, and the cold discard is very traumatizing. The person is left feeling confused, worthless, and desperate for closure, which the narcissist never provides. So you kind of spoke on that a little bit with that, like just that switch, that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And what, yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And like I said, like, you seeing it clinically and seeing it personally is a thing. So if I can't use my baby daddy for example, and I can use him for this. And he knows that I actively talk about it. He's aware. And also, he don't give a damn because it's attention. True narcissistic form.
Wow.
So, one of the things that you see with people who are really attached to like sexual relationships and romantic relationships is the ability to cheat and to juggle multiple partners at one time. And the idea of letting a person know, and a narcissistic relationship, letting that person is the survivor of said relationship, or the person that's in it with them right now, you are replaceable. And what I've done for you, I can do for other people very easily. You know, your time is, you didn't respect this, or you didn't cherish this or value this, so I'm just going to move on to the next thing. And it comes on like being caught in cheating, and them being like, well, I mean, it is what it is. You know who I know, you know who I was. Or, well, if I can't get X, Y, and Z from you, who you think I'm going to get it from? Also, the wildest thing that I ever heard, you know, my ex, he has 4 children from 4 different women, right? And like him, I'm divorced, he's divorced. And the wildest thing that I remember him recounting to me was telling his wife that he was cheating on at the time about one of the girls that he was cheating on her with, and being like, and him being like, her da da da. He was like, and she's like, oh, you just think that her body's better? And it was like, it is manufactured. The titties fake. They're perfect. And having this person sit on the phone and listen to that. And I remember talking to his ex-wife and her being like, oh, he said that shit and just no one's gonna hurt my feelings, But as a result, this woman has gone through multiple cosmetic surgeries herself, and most of them have not gone well or been botched because of the rushing of it. And it's not because she wants to do like a little mommy tune-up. You do whatever you want to your body. It's basically to prove like I can do it too. And what we don't see is when they get to that like discarding part of you. And I like the word. I always love the word discard because it's you're being treated like an inanimate object that can be replaced and pushed to the side. I have no use for you. That's what we do when we throw things away. We discard them. Oh, you're empty now. Next, I need something out of this food. And it's so harsh. That's why another reason, just to give you some context and also to be very transparent with you. Like I said, people can go through real life shit. I was targeted by my narcissistic ex-partner because I was a single mother that was a good mom. And it was like, oh, it's perfect. You know, I know that you're a nurturing spirit. I know that you know how to take care of people. I know that you know how to do this. I know how to do this. But I also know that you probably haven't had people do stuff for you like you need to do stuff for you. And at first, you know, me being a clinician, when I was in the thick of it, I was like, no, this is why. Like, and again, being a clinician, I want to be like, let me see what's going on. Let me see how I can support this person. And let me see how I can, like, some of the things that you're doing are, like, totally out of character for the person that you presented as. And then realizing, because I was also I'm polyamorous. So realizing when this person tried to do something to hurt me that was not ethical, non-monogamy, I was like, oh, you moved totally wrong. So I don't fuck with you no more. The fact that I pulled out was the ego blow to the masses. Because they're supposed to be in control of the situation. And being as though you can't hurt me by cheating on me, I just see you as not an ethical motherfucker after that. It was like, ooh, I have nothing else. So me now working with this person because the purpose of having a kid, and my daughter adores her father. And I don't want to come in between that. He's actually... He's grown a lot, and the way he treats her is really cute. Is really good. I'm glad he can do that. But also using my clinical skill, I kind of have like tricks in the bag to be able to maneuver conversations and communication without me getting caught up in the bullshit, and without giving him the space to make me question my reality, which he often says to other people. That's why we could never be together, because you're too fucking smart. And you have to be a couple steps ahead of the game sometimes. Well, a lot of times if you're dealing with narcissistic individuals.
Thank you for sharing so much. It's like, it definitely is really interesting being able to hear it from somebody that can see it from both perspectives, because again, you are human. And I think that probably informs a lot of how you navigate and your sensitivity to it when you see it in clients. I bet you, unfortunately, you had to go through it, but I bet you that makes you more effective when you meet narcissistic people.
Yeah, I think so. And also, you know what I'm saying, I have a trauma history, a deep trauma history. So it makes me more susceptible, like you said, about your experience. When you have that shared experience, you try to give people grace. And then me being a Black clinician and a Black woman clinician, I tend to really try before I say I wash my hands, because historically from our community, people have washed their hands without trying to dig deeper to help. So that's my Achilles heel, you know, helping people. But the thing that I had to learn in my relationships and my own experience, because I have narcissistic family members as well, is it's about guarding yourself. Yeah. Sometimes the way that you make people aware is by doing the opposite of what they expect and sticking to it as a boundary.
That sounds difficult, because So actually that brings me to the aftermath, which is like can be like a hovering phase. But so sometimes, you know, they might come back to kind of regain control. And that's like a vacuum sucking the victim back in. And so some common tactics are, I miss you, like a fake apology. I miss you, I was wrong. Playing the victim, I've been so depressed without you. Future faking, I promise this will be different. And then sudden nostalgia, remember how we were good together. And I think that can be very dangerous, especially if they do it too soon, because I think, in my experience personally, it takes a while for you to even process. Like right after that situation, I was like, wait, what just happened? Like, did this, like, it takes a while to process it. And, you know, I'm still processing it. And so, but if they re-engage, then that cycle can start all over again. Or even if they don't try to re-engage to restart the process, it really will mess with your mind and be like, okay, maybe it was me, or maybe I did do something wrong, or maybe I did deserve this. So that like hovering phase, that aftermath, is crazy as well. And I do want to get to some of, like, actually, yeah, I want to get to some of the possible reasons why you may have attracted a narcissist, somebody with NPD in the first place, because this is where I had to like take responsibility or just do an inventory, because it's like I kind of realized some of the reasons for, in my situation. One, I think I was vulnerable because I was single, and like I had been single for a long time, and I was just very ready. And the person that was presented just seemed to check off all the boxes without knowing what you said before about the research that can be done and the mirroring that can be done. I just was like, this is just too good to be true. And then full disclosure, I can't actually even really feel bad for myself, because one, Holy Spirit told me not to go there. Two, I hadn't made a covenant with God. So I broke a covenant. I also disrespected, you know, a situation that they had because they weren't fully, you know, available. So part of that was also added to my mind fuckery. Again, excuse my language. I just don't know how else to explain it, because on the one hand, I know I experienced something that I didn't deserve, something that was like emotionally abusive, but on the other hand, karma. Like, you can't do something, especially if as a person, like whatever your belief system is, you might not even believe in the same thing I believe in, but I think we can all agree, if you give somebody your word, especially an entity you feel like is your higher power, and you break that, then like you kind of know there's going to be consequences. So I couldn't even really feel through at first what I had gone through, because on the one hand, I'm like, well, that's just a natural consequence of not listening to your intuition and breaking a covenant and going against what you knew was right in the first place. But like, I think it's important to also say, okay, taking a step back, why was I so vulnerable? Why did I attract that? And then why did I, when I knew something was off, why did I stay there? And some of the things I found from doing research, and again, I did put some resources of some of the videos from, you know, professionals. And actually there's one interesting one I want you all to check out from a self-proclaimed narcissist that kind of talks about how it is being a narcissist. I thought that was interesting. He's very self-aware. So sometimes I think people unknowingly gravitate toward narcissistic relationships due to unresolved wounds, conditioning, and personality traits that make them more vulnerable. So if you are like a caregiver or like very sensitive to people and you're overly empathetic to people, I feel like that might make you more vulnerable. And so, you know, there's one, low self-esteem, right? And a need for validation. So if someone struggles with low self-worth, they might be drawn to the love bombing phase, as you know, of a narcissist. That intense praise and affection can temporarily fill a void and make them feel special. And the narcissist mirrors their ideal partner in the beginning, making them believe that they did find someone perfect. And so obviously what you would want to work on there is like developing that self-love, so that external validation isn't the primary source, and it isn't as intoxicating, because you know, you begin to recognize that consistency over time is more important than intensity in the beginning of a relationship. And I also blame Bollywood movies, right? Because I'm a hopeful romantic. I think I've watched too many Bollywood movies where they're kissing in the rain and the man will damn near chop off his arm to get to the woman you love. So I think I also too had this like unrealistic, idealistic sense of like what intense love and passion could be. You know, that movie like Water for Chocolate, or like Chocolate for Water. I can't remember what order that goes in, but that sort of thing is kind of, I think, always been in the back of my mind. But so the first thing was low self-esteem and need for validation. The second thing I found was a common thread is that a caregiver, like you said, the mom, the being a single mom, the caregiver, or people-pleasing tendencies. So if you were conditioned to prioritize others' needs over your own, you may unconsciously sacrifice your well-being in relationships. You might see the narcissist as someone to quote-unquote fix or heal, right? And so, you know, somebody like myself that considers themselves a healer, that makes me fodder for that sort of thing. And they are, sometimes they'll play the victim at first, or like you said, you can do trauma bonding where they'll tell you some very traumatic things that may have really happened to them, but it only just softens you up to have this extreme compassion, this extreme empathy, and you almost hurt for them, and it makes you want to see them healed more than you maybe would if they didn't, disclose certain things to you. And so it triggers that empathy. And so what you need to work on with that, I found, is, setting some boundaries. Not everyone deserves unlimited emotional energy, and just remembering that healthy relationships do not require you to save someone. And that's something that I know I need to work on, because savior complex is a real thing too. You might have the best of intentions, but or God complex, are you trying, it's not your job to save everybody. You don't even have the capacity to save everybody, especially when you're still working on and trying to save yourself. The third thing I found that was a common thread was childhood exposure to narcissistic or emotionally unavailable caregivers. And you did touch on that. And so this can happen if the person grew up in a home where love was inconsistent, it was conditional, or required, quote unquote earning. So they may subconsciously repeat that dynamic in relationships. And so if a parent was narcissistic or emotionally unavailable, love may feel familiar only when it's unpredictable or earned rather than freely giving, if that's the household you grew in. So challenging the belief that love equals instability by surrounding yourself with emotionally safe relationships, that's going to be key. And learning what secure attachment feels like: consistent, supportive, and reciprocal. Let's see. And then I would say also another common thread was attraction to confidence or power. That's something else I'm guilty of. I love powerful men. I love, that traditional masculinity, right? Not toxic, but just traditional, but that power dynamic. So narcissists exude, they drip charm, right? And confidence and boldness, which can feel exciting and attractive. But, some people mistake narcissism for true self-assurance. But like you said, it's actually covering up a lot of insecurity and a lot of feeling their own low self-worth. And so it looks like on the outside this powerful, confident, bold person, but really that person is probably one of the most insecure people in the room. That's just their mask. That's just how they were able to survive and be successful too, and so I guess just learning the difference between healthy confidence, humble, kind, self-assured, and the difference between that and narcissistic arrogance, so entitled, manipulative, or lacking empathy. I think that's key in being attracted to true confidence and power versus the appearance or the avatar of that. And then the last one was the belief that toxic love equals passion. Again, I'm blaming the Bollywood movies. If past relationships were dramatic or chaotic or full of highs and lows, stable love may feel boring in comparison. And that roller coaster effect of narcissistic relationships can create an addiction in the cycle of reward and rejection. And so I guess just recognizing secure love as passionate and in a steady way rather than a dramatic or unpredictable way. So those were some of the common threads of personality types or possible reasons why you may have attracted that sort of person in the first place. What are your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of those, those are definitely key, because when we talk about especially when we talk about people who are caregivers, is the idea of you go out of your way to make someone's life livable and to provide. And as a provider, you're troubleshooting, you're problem solving. And the narcissist sometimes comes with a world of problems because they're entitled to so much, they want to do so much. So you are what Mary J. Blige said, I don't know how old y'all are. I was your lover and your secretary, working every day of the week. It's I saw that you needed this. You need this need met because of the caregiver that I am.
Yeah.
And then here I am. Right. And so people who have personalities like that. Also, one that did not make the list. I find people that are incredibly susceptible. Well, it's a couple of people. People who are raised in strict religious households, they usually you have a strong sense of good, bad, justice. So these people are susceptible because often when you come from a strict religious household, the concept of good and bad are they're brought before you differently, and also the idea of forgiveness and the ability a lot of the major religions, the ability to forgive is connected to your concept of worth and goodness as a person. So if you are taught that you're supposed to have the capacity to forgive someone, and if you can't forgive them, you're not being godly, you're not moving like the prophet, you're not moving, like, it makes you more susceptible to allowing people to manipulate you or abuse you, because it's kind of like you're proving your resilience in order to prove that you're a good person and you're worthy of holding that person, giving that person forgiveness, which is problematic. People who don't have a strong support system, people who, like, my family all lives on this side of the world or in a different country, people who don't have a lot of friends, a lot of neurodivergent people will talk about, because one, I mean, you might not be great at reading certain social cues, or you may attribute someone's doing something to something that's like far off, but also because you see the world differently, you're processing things differently, you're trying to make sense of it in a way. This can't possibly be this, it must be because of this. And that's really hard for people. And also people who start dating later in life, because you haven't had a lot of exposure to different types of relationships and a chance to get your feet into what's healthy versus not healthy. You just have like this schema of, like what you were saying, like what it looks like in the movies, or what it looks like from your friends, or what it looks like. So you haven't had a chance to have your own personal experiences. And because you dated later in life, depending on what your life goals are, you may feel more rushed to settle down and to put up with certain things so that you can achieve your ultimate goal of having that one partner, that forever partner, being married or whatever, because you don't have that lived experience to be able to understand or to compare it to anything else. So you just feel like this is something that everyone must go through, when really it's not. Yeah. It's not at all. And I think it was something else that you said that I was just like, yeah. When we talk about the caregiving piece too, when we talk about like people who are narcissistic or like really hard family structure, it's also the idea of needing a space that's soft to land, and normalizing the fact that love, they're capable of loving. Like, you'll hear that person that talks about their parents and talks about the abuse and the things that they've endured, but be like, oh my gosh, I love them so much because they still did this for me, they still did this for me, they still did that for me. And the idea that, you know, this person did what they could with what they have. So I already know that somebody that brought me into this world, they're capable of hurting me, but they're still capable of loving me. And if I can hold space for them with all they put me through, why can't I hold space for someone else? Which is it's not a healthy way of thinking. Just because you're resilient doesn't mean you have to prove your fucking resiliency with every relationship that you're in. Just because you've gone through something and you experienced it doesn't mean you have to relive it or experience it again. You should be allowed to differentiate and have different experiences. And then the reason that people will say a lot of people are involved with narcissistic people and people don't believe it, because narcissists can be chameleons. My favorite narcissist to bring up is Ted Bundy. He was a serial killer. No one knew that he was a serial killer. In fact,
they said he was a good guy or charming,
but if you talk to anybody who knew him before them finding out of the person that he was, the despicable person that he was, as far as the crimes that he committed, they will tell you that he was just so good looking and so charming and such a conversationalist. And I've never seen anything that was, of course, they can't let you see but so much, because their cover gets blown, and then that allows for some type of discourse. And if they do, they manipulate the person that they're with to be like, oh, they just don't want to see you happy. So that's a big one too. Like, don't ever be like, oh, you know, nobody didn't see it. It's just me in my head. Nobody else was saying he would treat me like this or she would treat me like this. They would treat me like this. No, it's a disguise so that when you do speak out against it, people will question your reality as well, because I've never seen proof of it.
Yeah. That's so you bring up a good point, and that's the thing too, and I want to get to that. One of the questions was about the possibility of change, but if that person's avatar and their cover is so legit, like that's why I think they move with such arrogance, is that like they could never be exposed because they have this wonderful, you know, spotless reputation until, like you said, the only reason that would cause them to actually address it is if they were to hit rock bottom. But that isolation thing, I've noticed too, like one thing that you said is a person is isolated, like they're away from their family. Do you find that narcissists tend to isolate themselves, like they don't have a lot of people close to them, and that's how they're able to keep that cover, like keep that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's also if they have people around them, the relationships are very superficial. It's not like a deep person. So I'll use my ex for an example. They were in the armed forces, so they have battle buddies, right? Those people know them on a deeper level. But in military culture, so much shit is allowed and praised and like, oh, it's just because they're, you know. So they have those people. But if you ask them, as far as friends, they have people that they communicate with, but they'll talk about them like a fucking dog because, you know, they still think they're better or they're moving differently than those people. Right. The relationships are basically, and even if they're positive and they don't talk about that person doesn't know them as deeply as the rest of the world, or the person that is being their target knows them. And they do it purposely. They give them certain types of information so they can have one part of the story and see them from that light. But also the relationships are beneficial. So all of the people, the majority of the people that this person, my ex, has in their phone are business relationships. These people that they're like, they're like, oh, friends. Like they had a birthday party at somewhere. And I was like, how the fuck are you having a birthday party and you don't like any of those people? They're not friends.
Right.
Okay, thank you for not trying to interrupt me, but you also need to be asleep. Thank you, love you. This is my 5-year-old. You know, it's this idea that these are business relationships, so these relationships are making me money. You're not really a friend, you're a means to an end.
Right.
I'm isolated because it's safer that way.
Yeah. I mean, imagine, it would be so much easier for people to see the cracks. And that's the thing is, like, it's a house of cards when you get too close. And so if you do by chance get really close, I think that's another reason the discard phase can happen too, because once they realize that you see the real them, then they know the games, that cycle is going to stop. Or it's like they know you're either going to hold them accountable, you're going to just leave, or if you're direct, like, you know, I tend to be like this isn't healthy, this isn't going to work, we need to work on this, and they don't want to work on it. So that's why they're like, to hell with this, I'd rather keep up the house of cards and just toss it aside and keep my you know, the mirage up. So I do want to I want to get Milk and Cookie, since you're on the stage, thank you for coming up, and anybody else that has anything to share, you can, before I get to the 2 anonymous questions that came over. Thank you for being here, first of all, to everybody. This has been, man, heavy hitting. So I mean, in a way, I do feel like I recorded it for you all here, but you'll get to hear this. But Milk and Cookies, did you have anything you wanted to share, any questions or anything like that?
I can just say I can relate with almost everything that's been said. And it's taken me a long time. Like, I'm still unpacking the things that I've gone through. But now I'm in that weird stage, because we went through the love bombing and then, you know, slowly started seeing the true person I was with, and went through that whole phase, and now it's the aftermath of, well, you owe me this. You know, you hurt my heart, so you owe me this. And and just the ups and downs and roller coasters of emotions. And we're friends this moment, and the next moment it's bringing up something that happened years ago and throwing it in my face. So it's just, it's a lot to unpack, and it feels good to know that other people have experienced this. It's unfortunate, but you know, it's a real thing. All the gaslighting and everything, it's real.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that vulnerability. And it's unfortunate that so many of us have experiences, and it doesn't have to be just with a lover. It can be with a boss. It can be with a friend. It can be with a family member that you have endured this level of hurt from a hurt. You know, that old adage that hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. That's essentially, you know, what it is. But I will tell you, it is possible to recover, and it's possible to heal, and to gain more confidence in yourself, and to be better at acknowledging flags and not allowing your heart to soften them from red flags to pink flags, you know, or yellow flags. It's possible, and it does take work, emotional work, but you can heal. I actually do a group called Life After Difficult Relationships, where I help a lot of people process the hurt that they've encountered and figuring out, okay, what's the next step for me? And to understand that even though we could take responsibility for the things that we didn't attack right away or be like, I'm out right away, that it's not your fault that this person treated you this way, because they have free will and the ability to decide how to move. Because they don't do it with everyone. They do it with some. And also from the clinical part of it, that this is a way that this person thinks. So it could have been you. It could have been anyone. So please don't take the full brunt and being like, I gotta change everything about myself in order to not fall victim to a negative relationship like this. No, you can strengthen your boundaries, but don't allow someone to change your heart or to make you think less highly of yourself because they feel lesser about themselves than they're willing to admit.
Thank you for that, because I do feel like you end up feeling, I'm not going to say you, but for me, I'm like, okay, I considered myself a person of high intuition. And again, if I'm honest and I look back, I felt it in my gut, I knew better, but you do start to feel foolish and shameful because it's like, I know I'm smarter than this. I know I have a higher level of intuition. And then, you know, like when I realized that I wasn't actually adding value, I wasn't being the piece I thought I was. I wasn't, you know, I was giving my all too. That was another thing. It's just like, damn, I thought, you know, if that person is really what they need is they're lacking love, support, and really being seen, and you do all that and it still doesn't make a difference, and you know you do that at exhaustion, you start to feel like really, really foolish. And so it's good to know that, like, yes, you know, I have to take responsibility. We have to take responsibility, if for nothing else, our level of self-awareness and our level of honesty with ourselves and what feels good and what is healthy for us. Not that you have to take all the blame, because at the same time that person did, you know, they did treat you a certain way. But I do feel like we as individuals have to take responsibility for why we were there and why we allowed ourselves to continue there, just so that we don't repeat that cycle. So I love that you're giving us permission to be kind to ourselves in this. Hito, thank you for coming up.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good. But I'm on my PC and headphones. Man, woo! This conversation is so good. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is that I don't really share too much of my personal life when it comes to like relationships and stuff. Like only certain people know about it. I'm very reserved when it comes to that aspect. But the whole time I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this conversation, and the only thing that was happening was that I was having flashbacks. I was having moments of the relationships I've been through, like things that I didn't think about before, that I didn't realize at the moment when they happened. Like you mentioned some certain parts, and like I saw the moment happening in front of my eyes, and I just sat there like, oh my God, why am I thinking about this right now? I was like 23, and I'm 39 now, so imagine. And it was very interesting to definitely be able to reflect on those moments and realize how sometimes some people can manipulate us when we're not knowledgeable or don't understand what is happening in front of our eyes. But another thing that I wanted to highlight is that I think that when you're a person that has gone through a lot of self-work and a lot of reflection over the years, when you want to make a deeper change about yourself, like trying to understand what it is that makes you tick, what are the things that maybe you don't know that you need to work on yourself in order to improve and become the person that you want to be, the one that feels at peace and happier, that you start getting into a place that sometimes you hear conversations like this, and it makes you wonder, it's like, am I that person? Like, there were a lot of little things that sometimes I started sitting there and like hearing it, I felt like, oh my God, like, do I have narcissistic tendencies? And then I would hear like the opposite, and I was like, okay, no, but I would lean more to this way. And it was like going back and forth and like fighting, because like, you know, when you really want to change and you want to make this reflection, it makes you like sometimes like doubt, you know, the work that you have done. And it was like very interesting to listen to everything. And I said, like, I need like a one-on-one with Dr. Ashley, just to like, you know, throw like, you know, a few things here and there and see what she has to say.
Which can people, I think I saw on your website, like people can long distance, like remotely work with you, right?
Yeah, you can work with me for a consult if you're in my area. I'm in the DMV, so I'm in DC. My jurisdiction is for that area as far as like licensing and things are concerned. But I also do wellness conversations and psychoeducational consultations to help people process things. And like one of the things that I want to respond. Thank you for being vulnerable. I appreciate everyone's vulnerability. You know, I always tell people, when you are healing, it's kind of like going through a religious or a spiritual process, right? When you're working on yourself therapeutically and you're working on your mental health and your emotional health. As soon as you start working on yourself, the glaring like beams of the things that are like not aligned just hit so much harder. And it's like I always equate it to like going to therapy or working on yourself from a therapeutic lens is like when a Christian first gets saved, a Muslim first takes their shahada, and you know, someone who is Jewish really gets back in the orthodox of it. You know, a person who practices the African spirituality and has just come through a ritual, it's like, God damn, the demons are big. Yeah, it's because you've now been, exposed to the lighter side and the brighter side of how it is to interpersonally connect with people. So I always tell my clients, like, soon as you start going to therapy, you know, the motherfucker's going to try you. And it's the universe's way to see if you're really committed to the process and to test your boundaries as you're creating them. If you're not being tried or there's not an element of resistance from the world around you while you're working on your healing, I beg you to go a little bit deeper. You're doing some work. I'm not going to negate the work that you're doing, but go deeper. You shake the world in the world that you created for yourself, when you start to look at things. And also, you can be a healed person that still does some fucked up shit. We've all done something that we're not proud of, right? So understanding like, oh, that's not the person that I want to be. And also the insight and the wherewithal of like, damn, is that me? Is that me? If you're questioning something, it means you have a level of awareness that we should be proud of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like that's what I needed to hear. That's the confirmation I guess I needed. One of the things that you mentioned earlier that definitely hit me home was when you were talking about growing up in a Christian household, and the concepts of like how do you feel like the person that you should be because of like basically being in church and knowing to forgive others, and that you need to be a specific way. And the crazy thing is that when it comes to like myself in particular, like, look, I am a Virgo. 1, 2, my real name is Justo. Justo in Spanish means just.
Justice.
So imagine, you already know where I'm going with this. And it's like one of those things that like, when I was younger, I did not like, I never put things into perspective, but I always noticed that there was something going on. Like, I'm a person that these days, I understand that I have a great eye for patterns and understanding, people and like what they do. And with the mixes of all the other things that I mentioned before, like they allow me to see certain things, but sometimes it could be deterrent for myself, like as a person, because it's like, you see far beyond of something, and sometimes you get ahead of yourselves. And I had to learn to just like pull back and say like, okay, I'm listening to me. I understand what it is that I'm saying to myself, but I cannot react on these things because oftentimes I can be wrong, and I need to like dig deeper, or maybe just ask the question to find out, for myself, because I might know the answer, but I cannot know until I actually see it. And it's something that has helped me over time to be a little more patient and then understand whether things were right or wrong. But like, yeah, I'm at a place where I'm at peace with a lot of things, and I tend to, deal with it, or just, step away if something doesn't serve me. But I do agree with you, the part that like, even though I have done a lot of the healing work, one thing that I always like share when we're having these type of conversations spaces is that one of my favorite books, and is the book that I recommend to everybody, which is The Power of Now. I'm sure you know that book. But that book is life for me. And it was the thing that helped me move and understand what it was that I was dealing with as a person, and where I needed to heal from, and what I needed to move forward with. And then, The Body Keeps the Score was another one, which is like, the problems of trauma, as you grow up. And those things like help me. But even though I know those things, like you said, the devil is always going to come back and try to test you at the wrong time. When you think that everything is good, when you think that you're at your best place and you're at your highest, like right now, my body is like completely hot. The people that know me, that means that I'm like super excited. My emotions are, sensitivity is like all-time high at this moment with this conversation. But there's been times I'm at that place, and then something just comes and try to test me. And next thing you know, like I'm at the lowest part of my life. Like it feels like I'm like, I haven't gone through the healing. I haven't fixed a lot of things. And it's so challenging a lot of times. And it's like, sometimes you start thinking like, why me? Like, why is it that I have to be the one to go through these things? Like, leave me alone. I feel like I've done enough. Like, what is happening? And you tend to just question yourself so much. And, sometimes you just need to go through it to understand, like, you needed to understand still, because the lesson was not finished. Now that you've gone through the lesson, you get to see what it is that you needed to understand, that you're never going to be done. There's always going to be tests, but you need to be prepared for these things. So I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you for having me up here.
Thank you, Yuto.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to try to wrap in these next 12 minutes so that we can have Dr. Ashley call it a night. I know your little's up and probably want to get to bed. So I'm just going to get to the 2 questions, and then I have like a final question that ties into it. So the first one was actually, where was that from? A guy's perspective. He goes by DJ. Let's see if I can find that. He says, as men, we're often labeled as narcissistic just for having confidence or setting boundaries. How do we differentiate between healthy self-assurance and actual narcissism? And how can we navigate relationships where we're unfairly accused of being narcissistic just for expressing our needs? I feel like we kind of touched on that, but did you have any clarifications on that?
I love that question. It's such a well-phrased question. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to hit you with a statistic and then I'm going to tween it up, right? Unfortunately, 50 to 75% of people, adults diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder are men. So you're getting that from a place of like gender studies. So naturally, yes, there are women in non-binary folk and gender non-conforming folk that are narcissists. Yeah, but we see a lot of it in men. And my theory is because we don't tap into men emotionally the way we should.
That makes sense.
So as a result, they are starved and have levels of insecurity and have levels of like weaponized incompetence and all of these things that are there because we're not pouring into them, you know, and to help them develop a healthy emotional intelligence. We're just like, you provide, you pick a mate, you
don't cry,
raise the kids, you provide a lifestyle, and not providing them with the emotional stability and the foundation for emotions that we should. So when it comes to, you know, oh, I'm just confident. I might be a little bit arrogant, but I'm not narcissistic. It's the idea of when people are saying that to you, that can be really harmful. It's like, damn, you just call me asshole. It's my joke to my clients when they call somebody a narcissist. I say, are they a narcissist or are they an asshole? Two things. These are two different things, right? So the idea of how do I present? You present authentically. You present with, hey, I'm a good guy. I'm a good man, because this is from a man's perspective. And these are the things that I've done for myself. And I'm bragging on myself because, and not enough people have poured into me. Being honest and being vulnerable about it. Being confident and being cocky are two different things. You're confident because you are aware of the competence, the skills, the talents, the blessings, the gifts that you have. You're cocky because you're fearful that people won't acknowledge the gifts that you have. So you have to constantly talk about them. So when you're talking and having conversations about the things that make you tick, the things that you love, the things that, you know, you're passionate about, being sure to center those things and your relation to those things and not centering yourself and how those things make you free. I'm a writer. I don't constantly throw about my writing prowess in a way to demean people, but I'll tell you about myself. I'll tell you about the things that I'm into. Not being cocky, I can show you the things that I've done. So living authentically and being your authentic self, and everyone has the right to brag on themselves. I love to hear somebody toot their own horn. I love to hear people talk their shit. Go off. You should have the space to be able to talk about yourself without people saying that you're narcissistic. Let me tell you this, another thing, because people throw that word around. Sometimes and you're just like you're humble for real, but you like to talk your shit every now and then. Those people are threatened by what you're doing. So instead of being like, oh, that's crazy that you're doing all this, is wild, it's something that I couldn't even fathom, is you're just such a fucking narcissist. All you do is brag. All you do is this. All you do is that. No, you hear my accolades and you hear my accomplishments and you wonder why things haven't happened for you. And instead of you dealing with that internally, you're telling me that I can't, like those things because that makes me a bad person. Again, reminding you that there is a healthy amount of narcissism. And for men especially, if people are saying things to hurt you and harm you emotionally, mentally, you have the right to speak up for yourself. You have the right to say, the way you just said that to me, I feel disrespected. The way you said that to me, that hurt me because this is the relationship I thought we had. And I thought that you would, see me differently. The way that you presented that idea that really struck a blow. And be okay with letting people see that vulnerability. Because if you don't let people know, they will feign ignorance and keep doing it because you never addressed it.
Whew, that is a gem. That is good. Thank you. So many gems. Okay, the last one, and before we kind of, I'll try to tie everything up because I think this was like my last question too. This is from Foolishly in Love. They say, I left a relationship because I thought I had found something better. Someone who truly saw me, made me feel special, and gave me the kind of attention I always wanted. But soon after everything changed, he became mean, dismissive, and made me feel like I was constantly walking on eggshells. Now we're quote unquote on a break, but I can't tell if I'm just in too deep or if I'm stuck on the version of him I thought I was getting. Even though he's hurt me and doesn't seem to want me to be with me now, I still find myself hoping that if he gets help, maybe things could be different. Am I an idiot for still wanting to be with him because of all his good qualities? And have you ever cared about someone like this and had a hard time severing ties? And then the last question was, do you and Dr. Ashley think it's possible for him to change if he stops pretending he isn't this way?
Okay, let me start with the change piece, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is capable of change if they believe that they will benefit from it and they want it for themselves. Mm-hmm. No one in this room or in any of the platforms that we're on right now that are hearing this, you don't have the ability to change anyone. People have to want to change on their own. And you know, when we talk about narcissism, I told you a lot of those things are resulting from like ego blows, big deficits, big hits, and that causes them to be like, oh, I'm fucked up, or this is wrong, or I don't like this, or I'm seeing a pattern of this. Oh my goodness, you know, that is the change. That's when they go for the change because they're being deprived of something. But generally, in this humans, no matter how much you love someone, you can't love someone into being who they aren't, you know? So when it comes to being, you know, this recovery, no, you are not an idiot at all. What you are is someone who's deeply empathic and is in love with someone. And when you're in love with someone or you deeply care about someone, you want the best for them. And you are willing to like put your shit to the side or put your emotions to the side because you're like, I know it's in there somewhere. I don't want to give up on them like the rest of the world has given up on them. If I stick in it, then they'll see. The thing about it is that's not how love works. And that's not how true care and affection works. So if someone, you know, I always do this with my teen clients, I be like, y'all, I need you to remind you what Maya said. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. You know, if someone shows you that this is how I'm presenting, you have to take that. You can't make someone switch to a level of authentic self because you want it more than they want it for themselves. Mm-hmm. So the fact that this person is on a break right now, girl, run. Run. You got a clean space to start separating yourself from this person and the affection and the feedback loops that they're trying to put you in. You're hoping for a difference and that they can be a different. Baby, that different might not be with you. You are not entitled to their change because you put in a certain level of work or love.
That's good.
You are entitled to put in a certain amount of work and love for yourself and understand that it's time to disconnect from someone who is not willing to give you the things that you deserve. And you didn't do anything wrong for this person to want to keep these things from you. The only thing that you will be doing wrong if you stay with this person, despite what they have shown you, is not taking care of yourself.
First of all, that Maya Angelou, that impersonation was on point, made me giggle. But that is so good. I love that. That's a gem. That's a bar, and that's something I need to hear. Like, you are not entitled to a changed person, even if it's a better version, just because you pour it into them like that. There's that feeling of feeling empty-handed and do all of that for nothing, and they end up better, and then you end up all messed up and having to do work. But you're not entitled to them, and then you owe it to yourself not to wait and hope and wish and pray when you could love on yourself enough to attract the actual person that you want, that's already either healed or at least working on that, and that's not, detrimental to your mental health. So I love that. Oh my gosh, so many gems, because that was, if I'm being honest, like, after I realized what happened, I was going back and forth, and I'm like, okay, did I imagine it? Did I provoke it? Did I deserve that? And then, okay, no, that really happened. This person really has this thing. I feel kind of bad, because I feel even worse now, because now they're going to have to, like, they're going to continue through life, or if God willing, they live the average amount of years, another 40 years, pretending to be someone that they're not and taking advantage of people and hurt. Like, that takes a lot of energy, and I know they don't have peace. So then I went through the feeling bad for them, and then I went through well, maybe now that I have a full understanding of what I'm dealing with, if I were to be patient and help them, like, even as just from a distance as a friend, I could help them. So I went through this whole cycle, but realizing that, like, that I would have possibly have been willing to like, this person is considering, give them another shot. But I'm at a point now where I know what I deserve. I know I'm at a level of, I don't have to hold any grudges or be unforgiving, but I can wish you well and pray for you and all that from afar. It's like, it's not my problem anymore, and I don't need to wish you any harm and hope you get paper cuts in between your fingers for the rest of your life, just because I don't want God to I don't want you to get hit by a truck or nothing. I just want you to suffer a little bit. So I don't have to do that anymore. I can let go of my anger fantasies and wish you well from afar. But I love that you're saying that it is possible for them to change, whether or not it's likely, but it's none of your business. It's on them, and it's up to them to make that decision, and you don't need to be caught in the crossfire or suffer anymore just for the chance that they might get better. So oh my gosh.
You gotta love when you gotta give yourself another shot.
Yeah.
You giving so many other people shots. You gotta give yourself another shot to be open to something that's healthy and beautiful and is growth driven, instead of something that is stagnant because of this behavior. And like, when we talk about giving people another shot, and it's like, oh, it's different. An apology without changed behavior is a lie. So you can't, rely on people's word. You have to rely on word and action. And if that person has not shown anything without you, what do you think they're going to do when you re-enter? They're still in that same place. And they will use whatever excuse that is just to keep you near, because you have a good heart. And you, like you say, you fall back in that cycle again. Like, everybody isn't deserving of another chance. And this is controversial, but I don't also believe everybody's not worthy of your forgiveness. Mm-hmm. The person that's most worthy of your forgiveness for being in situations is you. You have to forgive yourself for what you did not see, what you were not capable of doing, and the things that you allowed. They don't owe you. You don't owe them shit. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about, people coming back and the things that you think about, that's because you're a good person. Don't let yourself being a good person let you fall for a good plot.
Oof.
Like, don't do that.
Damn, the gems. Look, don't let yourself being a good person let you fall for a good plot. This is incredible. I mean, I'm full. I don't know if anybody else had any last thoughts or anything like that. Those were the only two things that I saw come through. I'm checking one last time. Yes, I just want to kind of just, if you don't take away anything, I feel like the biggest gems that I've gotten are, one, like you just said, to forgive yourself if you have found yourself in a situation. If you're currently in it, you need to start making it. And it's hard. It's easier in some situations than others. I wasn't, married to the person. It might be different if you're married to a person or have children with a person. But I think some sort of finding someone to talk to talk through it that has experience with it, like both professionally or in their personal life, somebody like Dr. Ashley, somebody that understands the situation that can help you come up with an exit strategy would be, I think, wise. being kind and forgiving to yourself if you found yourself in the situation, not feeling shame or like you're stupid or like you deserve that, but being honest about why you found yourself in a vulnerable position like that. And then just making sure to ensure that you don't attract another narcissist, because some of us, find another person. It's the same person, just in a different flesh suit. So I think being aware, once you've gone through this, being hyper aware of some of the signs, and learn to recognize the early red flags, like we said, the love bombing, the lack of accountability, controlling behavior. I think developing self-trust so that manipulation doesn't override your gut instincts and your intuition, strengthening your boundaries and, not feeling guilty when you have to enforce them. Stop rationalizing bad behavior. If something feels off, it probably is. And then seeking relationships based on consistency, safety, and mutual respect rather than intensity and charm. So those would be my final thoughts on this. Dr. Ashley Elliott, did you have any final thoughts, suggestions, or anything else you wanted to share on this topic?
I love all of those points that you pulled up. Those are, yes, chef's kiss. I think for anybody that is dealing with or has dealt with a narcissistic personality disorder, diagnosed or undiagnosed person, or difficult people in relationships, the most important thing to remember is now that you survived, you have room to pursue what you need and what you deserve. You have room. You've learned something now. Apply what you learned so that you can make better informed decisions about who you want to allow in. And also, sometimes the hardest thing for us to do is let go. There's this song, I love me some Fantasia, that's my girl. She has this song on one of her albums called Without Me. And it's basically this song about how this guy that she poured so much into, that her and Kelly Rowland are on this track, giving the best of the, like, how the fuck dare you? I made you, motherfucker. Like, you, I did this, I made you this. Without me, you ain't shit. Da. Even though I love the song because it's like we've all lived that moment and we all had that shit to some degree. I always say, what you do with what I gave you is no longer my business once I gave it to you freely. So if that person goes on to the next girl, next guy, next person, and is able to get that shit together, and you just like, why the fuck can you do that with me? I'm so angry. It wasn't meant for you. It was meant for that person to go through this so they can acknowledge their wrongs. And you are not, again, you're not entitled to that growth process. You're only entitled to the shit that you are putting forth for yourself and the shit that you deserve. So take that as closure and put your effort and your heart and your love into building yourself up with stronger boundaries and clearer things to go into relationships with. And, when it comes to friendships and relationships, having those conversations about, like, what do you expect as a partner? What are your non-negotiables? So you can already have those boundaries and those things set up front. So when that person acts out of line or you act out of line, y'all already had a discussion about why we're disconnecting or why we're going to work on this. Take that as a warning. If you're not going to do whatever, you can disengage because you've already had these conversations about what's healthy and not healthy for you. And if no one's told you tonight or today or lately, you are loved, you are worthy, you are important, your life matters, you're capable of being in a healthy relationship. The things that you went through don't define you. And it may not feel like it now, but in your later, when you've moved enough stuff around and learned enough and made room for enough, the people that deserve to be in your life will show themselves. That's all I got.
That is a mic drop, and this has been an amazing time. Thank you again for spending your time and sharing your own personal story, and also helping us glean from your expertise. Again, what's the best way other than here on X where people can tap in with your services? I know you do a lot of speaking. Again, you're a writer. You do a lot. So if they want to stay in touch with you, follow your journey, or even leverage your services, how can they do that?
Yeah, y'all find me on this app here, also on Instagram and TikTok. This is the only app where I have the name Doctor spelled out. On all other platforms, it's like DRVIVID, so it's Dr. Vivid. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me on Threads. You can find me on... I'm on... not Instagram. I'm on YouTube too, but I'm changing it. My website is drvivid.com, spelled out DOCTORVIVID. On any social media platform, you can slide in my DMs and talk about, like, if you want a consult or a service, that's fine. You can also go to my website, but, I'm not a piranha. I don't chomp. So as long as you come to me respectfully in that space, I'll do what I can for you. And if I'm not the best fit, or if I'm, like, overbooked or something, I'll make sure to align you based on your preferences and what you need with the person who can help you.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate everybody that showed up. I'm not going to go through all the names, but you know who you are. I see you showing up to a lot of spaces and supporting me. Well, to heck with it. The people that are still here: Dave, Ness, O'Milly, Crypto, Trinity, Milk and Cookies, Hito, of course, Chosen, Ness, Dave, LM, Lady Never Scared, Jay Connects, Chosen, Boobs, Trinity, 6 days, everybody that's been here, Hito, everybody, of course, that has always shown up and supported. Your presence alone adds value. I hope that you got some gems. I know that something spoke to you. And I just want to, reaffirm what was just said. You are important. You are worthy of love and all the good things. And just keep showing up as your authentic self. And everything that you are putting out there in the universe is going to come right back to you. So keep being that good that you want to see. So I'm actually, I don't know, I feel so moved. This conversation that we were having inspired in me a song that I want to do, that I'm working on, called 21 Rules, because one thing I've said in my evaluating is that I want to have clearer boundaries. I don't think my speaker is gonna let me do this, so I might not do it, but let's see if it cooperates, and then I'm gonna end the space. But I feel blessed, I feel abundant, and I look forward to the next conversation. The next Dear Sapphy episode, by popular demand, we're gonna take a break from all the heavy stuff. We're all growing and all that, but I think, sex is an important topic too. Sexual health, sexual wellness. So I think next topic is going to be something around the lines of sexual wellness and what even is good sex, and are we even still able to have good sex in such a sex-crazed world? And so that will be episode 5. That'll be coming up soon. Okay, that's a work in progress. But I say all that to say, don't compromise, don't back down. Stand 10 toes down on your morals, your goals, your vision, and if nobody tells you they love you, we love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next time. Peace, love, and light, you all.